The baby monitor showed a perfect scene, a quiet room and a sleeping child. But while the screen stayed frozen on a peaceful loop, our service dog was living in the terrifying present. He stood directly under the camera and growled at the wall, refusing to look at the crib. We thought he was confused, but he knew something that technology couldn't detect. The image on our nightstand was a lie, and in the nursery, our son had stopped breathing. If we had trusted the safe green glow of that monitor for 1 minute longer, we would have lost him. If you've ever trusted a device more than a feeling and later wished you hadn't, stay with me. And if a dog has ever warned you when technology said everything was fine, tell me in the comments. This is why people subscribe here. I'll recount this carefully, the way it happened. The house was quiet in the way new parents learn to trust. Lights dimmed, doors cracked just enough. The soft glow of the baby monitor screen on the nightstand showing a small chest rising and falling in grainy green. Everything looked right. The service dog lay on the bedroom floor at first, resting, eyes half closed. He'd done this routine every night since the baby came home. He knew the rhythms, the sounds, the difference between fussing and sleep. Then he stood, slowly, deliberately. He walked to the wall where the baby monitor camera was mounted and stared at it. Not the screen, the camera itself. He sniffed once, then stepped back, then growled, low, controlled, wrong. "Hey," the mother whispered. "It's okay. He's asleep." The dog didn't move. He sat directly beneath the camera and lifted his head, eyes fixed on the lens like it was something alive. The monitor screen still showed the baby sleeping peacefully. The dog didn't believe it. And that was the first moment they understood this wasn't about the baby at all. The father reached for his collar. "Easy," he whispered. "You're fine." The dog didn't flinch, but he didn't relax either. He stayed seated beneath the camera, spine straight, head tilted just enough that one eye remained locked on the dark lens mounted above the crib. His growl never rose in volume. It stayed low and constant, like a warning meant only for those who knew how to listen. The mother glanced at the monitor screen again. The baby lay on his side, one arm tucked under his chin, chest rising and falling in a slow, even rhythm. "See," she murmured. "He's sleeping." The dog's ears flicked. He stood abruptly and moved to the doorway, barking once, sharp, precise, then turned and barked again at the camera. "Come." Now the father felt the shift in his stomach before he understood it. "That's not normal," he said quietly. The dog trotted down the hallway toward the nursery, stopped, turned, and barked again, louder this time. The mother grabbed the monitor and followed. He's probably reacting to the noise outside. But the house was silent, too silent. The dog reached the nursery door and froze. He sniffed once at the crack beneath it, then recoiled sharply and sneezed. Hard. He barked again and pawed at the door. The father pushed past him and opened it. The room smelled wrong. Not foul, not strong, just off. Sweet, stale like warm plastic. The dog surged forward, blocking the father's legs and forcing him back a step. "Hey," the father started. The dog snapped his head toward the crib and barked. Urgent, panicked. The mother rushed in behind them. "What is it?" The baby was still. The father's eyes flicked to the crib. The baby hadn't moved, not since the last glance at the monitor. The dog barked again, louder, and leapt forward, placing his paws on the crib rail. He sniffed the baby's face sharply, then barked again and nudged the baby's shoulder with his nose. Nothing. The father's breath caught. Why isn't he moving? The mother leaned over the crib and froze. The baby's chest wasn't rising. "Oh my God," she whispered. The dog barked again, rapid, sharp, and shoved the baby's arm with his nose. The baby's lips parted slightly, but no breath came out. The father scooped the baby up without thinking. "Call," he snapped. "Call now." The dog stayed close, pacing in tight circles, barking every time the baby's head lolled. The mother fumbled with her phone. "There's no signal." The dog barked again and lunged toward the hallway, then back toward the crib, then back again. "Air. Move." The father laid the baby flat on the changing table and tilted his head back, just like he'd been taught years ago. He checked the airway. Clear. No obstruction. The dog barked again and pawed at the father's knee. The baby's skin felt warm, too warm. Breathe, the father whispered, pressing 2 fingers gently to the baby's chest. Nothing. The dog barked again, then did something that snapped the mother fully into focus. He rammed his shoulder into the wall beneath the camera. Hard, plastic cracked. The camera shifted, hanging crooked, wires exposed. The monitor in the mother's hand flickered. The image froze, then glitched, then went black. That thing's been frozen, the mother whispered. The feed. The dog barked again and nudged the baby's chest with his nose. Firmer this time. The baby sputtered, a weak gasp. The father sucked in a breath. There! There! The boy immediately shifted, lowering his head to the baby's mouth and sniffing, then stepping back just enough to allow space. The baby coughed again, harder, and let out a thin, furious cry. The sound shattered the silence. The mother collapsed against the wall, sobbing. He stopped breathing. The dog sat, panting hard, but his eyes never left the baby. The father gathered the baby to his chest, hands shaking. You saved him, he whispered. You saved him. The dog's tail thumped once. Behind them, the broken camera dangled uselessly from the wall, and on the nightstand, the monitor stayed dark. It had shown a sleeping baby the entire time. The baby's cry didn't settle the room the way it should have. It shook it. The mother slid down the wall and sat on the floor, arms wrapped around herself, breath coming in short, uneven pulls. The father stood frozen for a moment, holding the baby against his chest like he was afraid the air itself might steal at him again. The dog didn't move. He sat in front of the crib, eyes fixed on the baby's face, breathing hard but steady, like he was counting every rise and fall now that it had returned. Call them, the father said again, more force this time. The mother nodded and tried her phone once more. This time the call went through. She barely remembered what she said, only that word spilled out too fast, and someone on the other end kept telling her to stay calm. The father laid the baby down again and watched his chest obsessively. Up, down. The dog leaned forward each time, then eased back when the rhythm held. Good boy, the father whispered without realizing it. The dog didn't react to the praise. He wasn't finished. The mother's eyes flicked to the broken camera. The monitor, she said, voice shaking. It never alarmed. It never changed. The dog stood at the sound of her voice and walked back to the wall. He sniffed the dangling camera again, then turned and barked once, sharp and accusing. The father swallowed. It was frozen. The dog barked again and nudged the father's leg toward the crib. Focus. The baby's breathing wavered slightly. The dog immediately stepped closer, nose hovering inches above the baby's mouth, ears forward, body tense. The father adjusted the baby's position. The breathing steadied. The dog sat back. Pattern. They moved to the living room so they could keep the baby in the open, under lights they could trust. The dog followed step for step, positioning himself so that nothing, no furniture, no shadow blocked his view. When the baby whimpered, the dog stood. When the baby settled, the dog sat. It happened again 10 minutes later. The baby's chest paused, just long enough to make the mother's stomach drop. The dog barked instantly, one sharp sound, and pawed the father's knee. The father reacted without thinking, adjusting the baby again, rubbing his back. The baby gasped and resumed breathing. Oh my God, the mother whispered. He's doing it again. The dog stayed standing, watching, alerting. He didn't bark again until it happened a third time, each pause shorter than the last, each recovery quicker. But the pattern was unmistakable. The dog was catching it before they did. The paramedics arrived fast, lights flashing through the windows. The dog stiffened at the noise but didn't retreat. He stayed close to the baby as strangers moved in with equipment and calm, practiced voices. What happened? One of them asked. He stopped breathing, the father said. The monitor said he was sleeping. The dog barked once at the word monitor. One of the paramedics glanced down. Service dog? Yes, the mother said hoarsely. He alerted. The paramedic nodded and turned back to the baby. Good dog. They checked vitals, fitted sensors, watched the numbers change in real time. Here, one of them said quietly. See that drop? That's what you missed on the monitor. The mother covered her mouth. How long has he been doing this? The paramedic didn't answer right away. Long enough that you're lucky you were awake. The dog sat beside the stretcher as they prepared to move the baby, eyes tracking every hand, every wire. He won't leave him, the mother said. He doesn't need to, the paramedic replied. He already did his job. The dog barked once, soft, corrective, not done yet. In the ambulance, the dog pressed himself against the mother's leg while she held the baby's tiny hand. Every bump in the road made the pain lift his head. Every change in the monitor's tone made his ears flick. The paramedic watched him once and said quietly, he's reading the baby, not the machine. At the hospital, under brighter lights and quieter urgency, the pattern repeated. The baby stabilized. The dog watched. A nurse tried to usher him aside. He refused. The doctor paused. Leave him. They ran tests, adjusted oxygen, observed. And every time the baby's breathing faltered, even slightly, the dog moved first. He never barked loudly again. He didn't need to. By morning, the doctor stood at the foot of the crib with folded hands. You were right to trust him. The mother's eyes filled. The monitor never warned us. The doctor nodded. Sometimes technology lags. Sometimes it lies. The dog finally lay down, still facing the crib, still watching. Because he hadn't been reacting to a single moment. He'd been responding to a pattern the humans couldn't see. Morning light crept into the hospital room without asking permission. It felt wrong. How ordinary it looked after a night that had nearly ended everything. The baby slept now, swaddled and monitored by wires that hummed softly instead of glowing silently. Numbers rose and fell on a real screen this time. Honest numbers. The mother sat rigid in the chair beside the crib, eyes flicking between the baby and the dog every few seconds. The dog lay on the floor, head up, eyes open. He hadn't slept. The father stood at the window, staring out at the parking lot like he might find answers there. The doctor said it's apnea, he said quietly. Brief episodes. Sometimes it resolves on its own. The dog's ears twitched at the words sometimes. They said the monitor should have caught it, the mother added. It's designed for this. The dog rose. He walked to the crib and placed his nose close to the baby's mouth. The baby exhaled softly. The dog stepped back and sat again, satisfied for the moment. A nurse entered with a tablet. We pulled the data from your baby monitor, she said gently. There's something you should see. The mother leaned forward. The father joined her. On the screen was a timeline, flat lines where motion should have been recorded. The feed froze, the nurse explained. Sometime after midnight, it kept looping the same 30 seconds of footage. The mother's hands shook. So when we thought he was breathing, you were watching the past, the nurse said. The dog let out a low breath. The father swallowed hard. For how long? The nurse checked her notes. At least 20 minutes. Silence fell over the room. 20 minutes. The mother's eyes filled. If he hadn't, she couldn't finish. The dog moved closer to her chair and rested his head against her knee. She buried her fingers in his fur like it was the only thing keeping her upright. They're recalling the model, the nurse continued. It's rare, but not unheard of. The father shook his head slowly. It told us everything was fine. The dog stood suddenly. He barked once, sharp, controlled, at the wall-mounted monitor above the crib. The nurse jumped slightly. He doesn't like that thing, does he? No, the mother said hoarsely. He never did. Later, when the nurse left, the father knelt beside the dog. You knew before we did, he said softly. You knew the picture was lying. The dog looked at him steadily. The father exhaled. You weren't watching the screen? The Wappa turned his head toward the crib. You were watching him. That night, they tried to rest. The miner refused. Every time the baby's breathing changed, even slightly, the dog lifted his head. Once, just before dawn, the baby's chest stilled again. The dog barked immediately. The nurse rushed in. Adjustments were made. Oxygen increased. The baby breathed again. The mother pressed her hands to her mouth, tears streaming. He saved him again, she whispered. The doctor nodded grimly. Your dog is acting as a living monitor. The dog sat back down. Job ongoing. By the third day, the baby stabilized fully. The episode slowed, then stopped. Doctors spoke cautiously about going home, with better equipment, redundant systems, follow-ups, but the parents weren't listening the way they had before. They weren't watching screens anymore. They were watching the dog. Before discharge, a technician arrived with a box. "We're taking the monitor," he said. "Company request." The dog growled softly as the man unplugged it. The father didn't stop him. The technician glanced at the dog. "Guess he doesn't trust it." "No," the mother said. "He never did." When they finally left the hospital, sunlight warm on their faces, the dog walked beside the stroller. Not in front, not behind. Aligned. At home, the nursery looked the same, but everything felt different. The wall where the camera had been mounted was empty now. Just a faint outline where the bracket used to sit. The dog paused there, sniffed, then turned away. Clear. The mother sank into the rocking chair and watched her baby sleep, really sleep, breathing steady, chest rising in real time. The father stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, the other resting on the dog's head. "We almost trusted a loop," he said quietly. The dog lifted his gaze to the crib. They all did, because now they knew something they would never forget. The dog hadn't reacted to danger. He had detected absence, and that absence, the missing breath, was something no screen could feel. If you're still here, it's because you know the most dangerous failures don't scream. They reassure. If you've ever trusted a screen and felt that quiet doubt anyway, tell me in the comments. And subscribe, because what comes next is where trust finally changes hands. The first night home was the hardest, not because anything went wrong, but because nothing did. The house was too quiet again. The kind of quiet that once felt comforting and now felt like a lie waiting to repeat itself. The baby slept in the crib, swaddled and small, chest rising and falling in a rhythm the parents watched obsessively. No camera on the wall, no screen glowing on the nightstand, just the dog. He lay on the nursery floor, positioned so he could see the baby's face clearly. Not blocking the crib, not touching it, just close enough to feel every shift in air. The mother sat in the rocking chair, arms folded tight around herself. "I keep thinking I should check something," she whispered. The father shook his head slowly. "There's nothing left to check." The dog lifted his head at the sound of her voice. She looked down at him. "You'll tell us, right?" The dog didn't move. He didn't need to. An hour passed, then two. The mother's breathing finally slowed. The father leaned against the door frame, exhaustion creeping in. The baby stirred. The dog stood instantly. Not barking, not panicking, standing. The mother froze. "What is it?" The dog stepped closer to the crib, nose hovering inches above the baby's mouth. The baby exhaled softly. The dog stepped back and sat. The mother let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "He's checking." The father nodded. "He's doing what the monitor pretended to do." That realization landed quietly, but it stayed. Later, in the early hours of the morning, the baby's breathing changed again. Not stopped, just slowed. The dog didn't bark. He didn't need to. He nudged the mother's knee gently with his nose. She startled awake instantly. "What?" She leaned forward and placed her hand on the baby's chest. It rose. She adjusted the baby's position slightly, just as she'd been taught. The breathing normalized. The dog lay back down. No drama, no alarm, just correction. Tears slid silently down the mother's face. She pressed her hand to her mouth and looked at the baby like she was seeing him for the first time. "You didn't scare us," she whispered. "You guided us." The dog rested his chin on the floor. In the days that followed, the pattern continued. The dog slept lightly. The parents slept carefully. The baby breathed. And every time something changed, temperature, position, rhythm, the dog noticed first. Never late, never wrong. One afternoon, a visiting nurse suggested reinstalling a different monitor. "Just as backup," she said gently. The dog stood and placed himself between the nurse and the nursery wall. Not growling, not barking, blocking. The parents exchanged a look. No, the father said quietly. We're good. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. You know your situation best. The dog relaxed. That night, the mother sat on the floor beside the crib, back against the wall, watching the dog instead of the baby. You're not watching him sleep, she said softly. You're watching him live. The dog's ears flicked. She reached out and rested her hand on his back. We trusted a picture, she whispered. You trusted breath. The father joined them, sitting cross-legged nearby. You didn't need electricity, he said, or updates. The dog shifted closer to the crib again, centered. The parents finally understood the difference. The monitor had been designed to alert them when something looked wrong. The dog alerted them when something felt wrong. That night, as the house settled and sleep came more easily, the mother leaned her head against the wall and closed her eyes. If we hadn't listened, she murmured. The father didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both looked at the dog, and in that quiet narrowing to one baby, one dog, one steady rhythm, they understood what had saved their child. Not technology, presence. The second night home brought the test no one wanted. It came quietly, no alarms, no cries, just absence. The mother was half asleep in the rocking chair, head tipping forward, breath shallow. The father had dozed off, standing in the doorway, shoulder against the frame. The house held still, as if it were listening too. The dog's head lifted, slow, certain. He rose and stepped to the crib, placing his nose inches from the baby's mouth. Nothing, no warm rush of air, no whisper of breath. The dog didn't bark, he didn't panic. He turned and nudged the mother's knee, harder this time. She startled awake. What? The dog barked once, sharp, final. The mother was on her feet instantly. Her hand went to the baby's chest, still. Oh my God, she whispered. The father was moving before the words landed. He lifted the baby, tilted the head back, adjusted position exactly the way they'd been shown in the hospital. The dog circled tightly, barking once more, then stopped, waiting. The father rubbed the baby's back firmly. A second passed, then another, then air, a gasp, a cough, a thin, furious cry that shattered the room. The mother collapsed to her knees, sobbing. He's breathing. He's breathing. The father pressed his forehead to the baby's head, shaking. You saved him, he whispered. To the blah, to the moment, to whatever had just stayed with them instead of leaving. They sat, panting, eyes never leaving the baby. They didn't sleep after that. They didn't need to. The crisis had passed, but the truth had settled in fully now, heavy and undeniable. They weren't lucky. They were listened to. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the nursery. The baby slept peacefully, breath steady and real. The dog lay nearby, stretched out but alert, one ear flicking at every small sound. The mother sat beside him on the floor and ran her hands slowly through his fur. You didn't trust the picture, she said quietly. You trusted what mattered. The dog closed his eyes. Later that week, they returned the baby monitor. Unopened replacement box still sealed. The company apologized, offered upgrades, promised improvements. The parents declined. They didn't need reassurances anymore. They needed presence. Months passed. The baby grew stronger. The episodes stopped. The house regained its ordinary sounds. Laughter, footsteps, late-night feedings that ended in sleep instead of fear. But one thing never changed. The dog always slept facing the crib. Years later, when people asked why they never reinstalled a monitor, the mother would smile faintly and say, "We already have one." And when they asked why the dog was always so close, the father would answer simply, "Because he knows when silence means danger." The calm aged gently, muzzle graying, movement slower but eyes just as sure. Even then, he never missed a change in rhythm, never ignored a pause, because he wasn't trained to watch screens. He was trained to watch life. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that not every warning makes a sound, subscribe so moments like this don't disappear into silence. And tell me in the comments, would you have trusted the monitor or the dog? The screen said everything was fine, but the dog listened for the breath that wasn't there.